It's been said that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. Today, we're going to talk about professional collaboration on our overall mission of helping you find success in business and significance in life. Today, we're going to talk to an individual who's been in the industry for over 24 years, had tremendous success, both in his own production as well as in leading others. He's going to give us some clues how you can begin to collaborate and maybe ways that you haven't been in the past, you haven't thought of in the past, that will help you to go much further than you ever thought possible. Today's episode is going to be a special one with a very special guest. Stay tuned. So the big question is this: how do those of us in the real estate industry who have crazy amounts of ambition, how do we think bigger than the building of our own empires? How do we create success and significance, income and impact? My name is Justin Stoddard. This is my co-host Stephanie Peck. And together we bring you the Think Bigger. All right, welcome back, everybody. And Stephanie, how are you feeling about this year so far? Are you off to a great start?
No, I'm not. I won't even sugarcoat it. I'm not off to a great start, but I am still so very optimistic that we're on the launching pad. So it's coming. But I'm just really excited to learn more about Jeff today and get to know him and how he has led massive amounts of people by coming from a place of contribution.
So here's the thing I love about Stephanie is whatever is the truth, you will hear from her, which is fantastic. Last year, she sold 96 homes. She had a very small relationship-based team. And we were actually talking earlier this year, just a few weeks ago, and she was telling me how she's tracking. And you can tell a leader because they recognize that this is where I'm actually at, right? I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And this is where I expect to be. And so I love that you're here, Stephanie, swinging it out. And we're excited again to jump into today's guest. His name is Jeff Sutherlin. Jeff, such a pleasure to have you here. Let me do a quick bio, and we'll give you some big mic time today because we want to learn so much from you. So Jeff has been in the industry for 24 years, right, Jeff? You did everything from were an important leadership level at Intel, all the way to running a massive new home construction division, all the way to launching your own brokerage taking it from 0 to 250 agents, to now leading a sales organization and a cloud-based brokerage, and still selling properties day in and day out. So for those that are curious about why we brought Jeff here, as soon as you meet Jeff, and of course hearing his bio, you realize like this is a guy I can learn from. And every time I've been around Jeff, that's the feeling I get is I can learn something from Jeff. So Jeff, such a pleasure to have you here.
Oh, what a pleasure, Justin, to be with you and Stephanie. I think the world of both of you guys. I'm excited about this today.
Well, we feel the same. And so Jeff, let's just jump in. Again, the premise of today's show is professional collaboration. When you got started in real estate, you obviously realized that there were some opportunities for you, right? At what point did you start to realize like I can go much further as I really partner with other people and I start to collaborate with other people? Like what were some of the ahas and epiphanies that you had along the way of this collaboration gets me further?
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have a mentor and you don't have a coach, it's a pretty lonely journey. And as I got into the real estate business, that was way back in like 2001. I actually, my first real job was at a new home construction company, a national home builder. And I ended up managing about 35 people on the sales force. And that came from a career. My first career was at Intel Corporation. So I was a supply chain manager at Intel Corporation. And that was one of the best training areas that I could ever be in terms of companies that train great leaders. And, you know, in a factory, you know, you're only going to put the output of the factory as fast as your lowest producing machine. Right. So you have to work together. Everyone has to work together every single shift. I remember when we're in the factory, we used to wear these clean room suits. You can imagine what those were like. And we'd meet every 3 hours. All the management would talk about, well, where's the bottleneck? Right. And we would discuss where that is. We would focus as a team to get the total output of the factory to a higher place. So when I started to understand how important it is to collaborate with other people and work together towards a common goal, I took that right into real estate. So I knew immediately that I'd only be as good as the people that are around me. in my inner circle. So I'm constantly trying to think about who can I go meet today, right? Who's the millionaire that I can take to lunch this week, right? I never want to be the smartest person in the room. And that's really not that hard for me. So I just try to hang around people that are better, and I don't try to get too creative. I copy what they do as much as possible, because to me, that's the biggest form of flattery, right? I take what other people are doing and I just try to perfect it a little bit. And I really give a lot of tribute to people that have helped me along the way.
You know, it's fascinating, Jeff, the way that you describe that. When you think about a company like Intel, right, that has, I don't know what their market cap is right now, but billions and billions and billions, right? Hundreds of thousands of people employed, if not more. And you think about how precise they are in their process. If there's one thing that the real estate industry is maybe not known for, it's precision systems, right? And very small feedback loops to where are we on target? Are we off? And although maybe Stephanie didn't love that question that I hit her with very first thing, it's very telling that she has precision-like systems. She knows the very first week of February if she's on target or off target. Now, her off target is what most people would dream of. Like, it's far beyond their on target, but she's very aware of this is what we need to hit as a team, and this is where we're at. So no, it's like I'm not satisfied yet, right? And so I see some similarities here between those that have built great businesses, both inside and outside of real estate. Stephanie, tell me your thoughts on that when you hear kind of the tight process loop that is necessary at a company like Intel. How have you structured maybe some of your business without maybe even knowing about, by having some of those tight kind of feedback loops?
It's all about evaluating your goal and your gap constantly. And that's what I'm always looking at. And so I think I will confess, and even, with my comment, like, no, we're not off to a great start. We're not. It's because good leaders are always looking at where's the goal and where's the gap, and how do I fill the gap? And that's essentially what Jeff has described that he has done in leadership in many different roles. And I actually really love how you said that you learn is just be around people that are doing things that you want to be doing and imitate that. And the key to that is being a student and being a listener, right? If you go into those lunches and you want to talk about how great you are, you're not going to gain anything. And so you first have to recognize your gap, and then where can I gain and who can I learn from, and just be a listener from other people.
Great takeaway, right? I mean, this early on in the show, everybody ought to realize, look at your schedule this week, say, how many appointments do I have with people who I would say are further down the path than I am, and how can I take them to lunch and learn from them, right? I think that's one great takeaway that everybody ought to be implementing. Look at your schedule right now and see, do I have anybody on there that I can learn from, who can mentor me, teach me a thing or two? Jeff, let's continue down the path, obviously from Intel to this big home building company, right? Where you saw the need to collaborate on that level. At what point did you realize, I want to step out of this element of real estate and into more selling yourself, right? Actually selling homes versus running a division for a home building company?
Yeah, so you're exactly right. When I came out of Intel, it was very systematic. Everything was on a specification. And then I went into real estate and I was like, wow, this is totally different. And it was a culture shock for me. When I left the national home builder and went into resale, that was an interesting shift, because if you ever look at in our industry, a lot of new home people go over to resale and they struggle mightily. It's a totally different game. When you're in new homes, you're getting leads that come in the door. When you're in resale, you have to go hunt. And that's a completely different skill set. And so I believe that I could do that, because to me, it all starts with belief, right? Everything really starts with belief. And if you believe you can do it, and you've got that grit, you can figure it out. But if you don't have that willingness to get in, get your hands dirty every day, get in the seat and lead generate and be consistent, you're going to have a very up and down career. And what I usually, I was sharing this with an agent this morning. I said, show me your calendar, right? I'm sure you guys have done this. All the people that I coach around the nation, one of the first things I do is I say, please share your screen with me and show me your calendar. Because if you show me your calendar, I can pretty much tell you how successful you're going to be. I bet you Stephanie's calendar is beautiful. I bet you it's color coded. I bet you she's got it dialed in, and that's why she's a success, right? So it's time management is probably one of the biggest things we struggle with as agents. It's probably one of the most important things. If you don't have that dialed in, you're like a rat on a wheel in this business we call real estate every day. It's a very reactive business unless you get in front of it. And I can tell you right now, I don't meet with people that I don't want to meet with. You know, I know how to create systems of avoidance, believe it or not. I know how to avoid meetings that I don't want to have. And I want to meet with the people I want to meet with that are going to serve them and serve me. So to me, you got to be dialed in on your calendar. I hope that I kind of went off on a tangent there, Justin, but I hope it helps a little.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. I think that, one thing that stood out to me, Jeff, is the fact that you are a coach, right? And you mentioned early on that if you don't have a coach and a mentor, right, you can take people to lunch, but I think the next step of that, the next phase of that is to say, okay, that I can learn a lot from that person, and to formalize it and actually give them currency, give them your time and give them money. And I think when people aren't willing to make that kind of commitment, then they get in return what they're putting forward. Stephanie, I know you have a number of coaches at any given time. Talk us through that for you. How has that helped you to propel your growth forward by formalizing and actually being willing to enter into coaching agreements?
You know, for me personally, I am an overthinker. And I think actually, Justin, you were the first person to say this to me, that I suffer from analysis paralysis. So I will tend to hold back on doing something until I know it's perfect, or until I know I can execute. And so for me, working with a coach, I had to find the right coach that would help me through that would just say, get out there and just do something. Stop doing nothing, worrying about whether it's perfect or not, and then just go do something. And so I have set a goal for myself. And, you know, Jeff talking about my calendar, when I look at my calendar for next week, because I'm already thinking about next week, I'm not looking at what I'm doing this week. That should already be full. I make a plan. Not only do I want it to be filled with client appointments, but I make sure that every week I am having an intentional meeting with usually a real estate agent or somebody in the industry that is doing something that I want to be doing. And I have an appointment with another professional that is a cross industry professional, like financial advisor or tax advisor or something like that. Every week I'm having an appointment with someone so that I can learn about their business and how I can collaborate that in with my business. So I'm intentional. If I don't have that appointment, I'm going to get on the phone. I might get on Facebook and scroll through my friends list and say, who do I know that I haven't reached out to yet and haven't made an actual connection with?
I love it. Next level calendar insight, right? Do you have people there that you can learn from, as well as just people with whom I can collaborate with? Jeff, talk to us about what a top agent in this market should have on their calendar. Like, in your opinion, right? You're a coach. You're saying, show me your calendar. You're saying it should be full. What should it be full with? Because we can fill our days with busyness, right? This doesn't necessarily lead to business. Yeah,
for sure. And before I answer that question, to piggyback off what Stephanie just said, she probably finds joy in talking to these people because she's genuinely interested in them. You know, I can tell that in her. I believe that to be so as well. When I go meet with people, I actually find a lot of joy. It's almost like I'm on a little mini vacation. I get to sit there and take notes and write about their life. And because I find a lot of just comfort and joy in getting to know other people's stories. And then I build that trust with them because they realize I do really care about them and their family. And that earns me the right at some point to have what I would call a fierce conversation. Right. And that's what's missing in our society. The missing conversation is the worst conversation in life. I learned that through Fierce Conversations, written by a lady out of Seattle, Susan Scott. It's a great book. If you don't have the conversation, that's worse than a conversation gone bad. right? So I would rather have a tougher conversation. And over the course of my career, I've been known as a truth teller, but the relationship gets stronger after you do that because you're bonded, because they know you care about them enough to have that conversation. So I just wanted to bring that up because I can tell Stephanie really values her relationships, and that's why she's so successful. But what you should put on your calendar, you got to have 2 hours a day of lead generation. We've all heard that. You got to have it, and it needs to be in green, and it needs to be intentional. And then I've always coached that you need to have about 5 key referral partners in your life. And that eliminates the up and down of real estate. The incomes usually go up and down. You get a bunch of deals, you close them, you work really hard on the working in your business, then you close all the deals, and then you have no pipeline because you deviated from what you were supposed to do and be consistent with the lead gen. So it's funny, it takes discipline to do this business. And you see a lot of agents actually rise and fall in our business. I've seen that over the years because it's difficult to keep that level of discipline for the long haul. It's not easy. It's not anything that's like mystical or magical, but it's tough. So you got to have that on your calendar. So the morning I stack in terms of nurturing people, outbound calls, 2 hours of lead generation. And then in the afternoon is the time to work in my business. Right. And I try to separate those two.
Stephanie, how does that compare with your calendar? Like what you see on your calendar, are you pretty consistently aligned with what Jeff's saying here?
Yes and no. Yes, but I'm a little more ADD, so I like the fluidness of the times. I personally have found that if it's a certain time, I will find every way to not do that at that time. So I will move it around, but I will always get it done. So I'm okay personally, and this works for me. It doesn't work for everybody. I'm okay with moving lead gen time to 2:00 that day because I needed to mix it up. I needed a distraction. So discipline is great, but not at the detriment of actually doing it. Again, I'm that analysis paralysis. I'll just turn it off, but I know that it's going to happen one way or another. And I'll schedule in some goof off time. I'll schedule in some creative time or some free thinking time or some unstructured time because I know I need that. So, but it is allotted for.
On that note, awesome. It's so fun to learn from the both of you because you both have just produced at such a high level that there is no exact science. Everybody is wired a little bit differently. I think it's important that everybody that's listening here today realizes that, yes, I have to have time to generate new business. And it will look different for most of you, right? And then I need time to actually follow up and do the business that I generated. And I think it's important to, as Stephanie pointed out, to have built in there some reality. Like I'm also human, right? I also need to go for a walk. I also need to just call my mom. I also need to do some things, right? And actually to have space for that or even block it out. I've found that I'll have like a favorite podcast or a favorite book, and I'm very focused on my health right now. So I'll go walk 1.5 miles and listen. And it's interesting how much more you can consume when it's not all in one sitting, when it's these little bite-sized amounts of inspiration you can come back then and act upon. It's like you get extra traction because you're able to actually implement instead of one big binge session. It's these little snacks, right? These little snacks allow you to apply. Jeff, how do you do that because some would look at you and be like, man, I don't know how you do that consistently, right? Lead generation every day. And then, all this other important stuff that works, but we as humans are pretty inconsistent. Like what tips and tricks have you found to navigate that reality that we're inconsistent people?
Sure. What a great question. First of all, I'm not the greatest at this. I do the miracle morning, that rhythm. I do that morning rhythm every day. I've been doing it for years. It really kind of gets me in the right heart space and mind space. But back to what you said earlier, it's really interesting because when I grew one of my organizations that I was an owner of, a local independent here in Chandler, Arizona. I owned half the company. And after 6 years, we amassed a large company and we were ranked number 1 for productivity per agent in 2013 in Phoenix. Wow. But then when I exited that business, I literally had an identity crisis. And because unfortunately, my identity, I was wrapping it too much into my real estate career. and it shouldn't have been. I won't go too spiritual on this broadcast.
You're welcome to. We're good with that.
Okay, good. So my identity is in Christ, and I had to get back into realizing that is my identity, not being a real estate agent or owning a real estate company, right? That was nice, and that's how I make a living. But it's if you were to lose everything today in terms of how you generate income, who are you? Who at your heart level, who are you? What are you doing for society, right? So I don't want to ever lose that, and I don't want to ever be in that spot again. So to me, I have to make time for these other things. And quite honestly, they come first. My vacations come before real estate. My spiritual health and my physical health comes before real estate. And as I've gotten older, I've realized how important that is, because once you start losing your health, it's not good. Because I've seen it as a pastor. I see it every day.
Yeah, I think, Jeff, I think there's so much wisdom in that. And again, Stephanie and my whole mission of this Think Bigger Real Estate podcast is successful businesses and significant lives. And I've found that, especially in the world of real estate, as I've been connected to the industry for now over 20 years myself, is that if you wait to put the spiritual things, the family things in, the health things, when there's time available, there won't be any, right? That the work available will always fill the entire space. And so I love how you've actually determined to have a what's known as the Miracle Morning, right? Which, if you haven't read that book, it's a great book called Miracle Morning. It gives you a very specific cadence to do each morning that covers the key areas of life, right? Stephanie, I know you're also a very spiritual person, have a wonderful family, prioritize your health. How do you fit all that in? Because some might say there's no way you can sell 96 homes, lead a small team, have the brand and reputation in the area that you do, plus leading now a sales organization across the country. There's no way you can focus on these other things. Like, these other things must be just kind of like put to the side while you're focusing on business. And I know that's not true. So how do you fit all that in?
You schedule it, you plan it, you put a system around it. I committed this year to reading the Bible in a year, and I don't read, I listen, but you get to call it reading now with technology. So I got an app that's going to pop up at 7 a.m. and it's going to tell me this is what you need to listen to today, and you're going to get it done, and you get a checkbox. And I live for the checkbox. I live for knowing that I accomplished something, even if it's small. And I have implemented habit stacking because I know that if I try and do it, I'm going to lose it. Like, I'm going to lose the habit very quickly. So when I said I want to read the Bible every day, I'm going to do that when I brush my teeth. That's when I press play. So it's the same thing. And when I know that, like, when my daughter gets home from school, that's how I'm going to get my outside time, because we're going to take the dog for a walk. So it's a system in place for everything, because otherwise it's just not going to happen. I know I've lived that. I've gone down that path for too long.
Yeah, I love it.
And our kids are watching us, right? And we are raising a very anxious generation. And it's funny. The phone is our income, our ability to create income, right? But it's also one of the biggest things that our kids are seeing us and how we live our lives. And we have to put it down. We have to be present with people. And I would say I've pretty much programmed that, just like Stephanie said too. Now I've systematized that to where I can just put it down instead of being a slave to your phone, because it can be a bad thing.
It's interesting, this concept of I've heard it called the dual move. Right? Where, like, I want to be healthy and I want to spend time with family. Let's go on a bike ride together. Right? Like, I want to read the Bible. I want to be healthy. I'm going to walk while I listen. Like, I think that as we start to, like, cover two areas of life with the same thing, there's some accountability there, and it just gets easier as well. Right? One thing that I did recently is my kids would see me reading the Bible on my phone. But they thought I was on social media. So I actually have paper scriptures. Now they see me, like, open and going through, because I wanted to have the dual move of feeding myself spiritually and also being a role model for them as to where they should go for life's inspiration, right? So I just encourage everybody to think about what are the different areas when it seems like there's all these things I need to do. Start to habit stack, like Stephanie described, right? Start to put them in dual container, or one container, two things, and you'll find that it gets a lot easier and you can cover a lot more ground, obviously much faster. Back to this topic of collaboration, Jeff. I know the way that we met is through the Pro Insight platform, right? Which I've got the good fortune to lead and be surrounded by superior professionals on all sides, right? It's an absolute humbling experience to see so many great people. I know just recently you received a noteworthy piece of business from what maybe some would say would not be a typical source of business. Would you walk us through kind of how that happened? Was it a home inspector or handyman? Anything that you want to share in that would be awesome to help people realize that collaboration doesn't mean you just feed other people, right? And you give out referrals, but it truly means collaboration, learning from, as well as sending and receiving noteworthy pieces of business.
Yeah. Well, when you're a real estate agent, one of your jobs is you need to nurture your database. You need to, understand what's going on in the families of your database. And I've always said, if you got 150 people, 200 people in your database, it should be a basic requirement that you understand what's going on in those families' lives, right? I know who the kids are. I know what their issues are. I know their events. It's important to me. And so, one of my clients, basically, she knew of a handyman that I've been using for years that I always refer out. And the handyman was making some repairs, and he found out that she wanted to, sell her house. And of course, I probably would have found out, but he connected me with this client and took the listing, and it was a very sizable listing, and it's a beautiful home. So I'm a real big believer in that affiliate network. And this is something Pro Insight has really helped me get better at. Honestly, it's given me more intentionality around it. So now my lender and I are good, co-leaders, and we're developing this power team of great people. And we were very selective on who we invited in, because to me, quality is very important. And because of that, now we're getting people referring back to us. The law of reciprocity at its best, right? If you really put into people and help them grow and succeed in their life, they will give it back to you. But it's important to ask. You got to ask.
I love this concept of a power team, right? Many people who have been in BNI are familiar with the power team. Like, the best part of BNI is the power team, and that's kind of what we've created at Pro Insight. It's a power team on a digital platform that makes it super easy. And I just have to show this off. This is Jeff, the man right here, highlighted front and center with his amazing lender on the back. And we're now helping him to promote this out to top relocation markets so that he can solidify not just these local relationships, which he has. All right, here's his wealth advisory team, but also has the ability to now secure these other professional collaborative relationships in other places. And you talked about, Jeff, having this team of at least 5 right around you that are key referral partners. Stephanie, you talked about having actual, like, intentional meetings with these other professionals on at least a weekly basis, right? 1 per week. What would you add to that, Stephanie, as far as kind of your eyes being open to the additional sources of business and just improving your own client experience by getting closer to these other professionals?
I think we, as real estate agents, have a huge opportunity right at our fingertips, because I was thinking about that piece of business that Jeff acquired. And, then he mentioned to us before we came on, just listed a $2.7 million property in Arizona. Like, hey, you guys want to buy it because it's cold here in Oregon. My mind goes to, what does that homeowner do to have earned the income to have a $2.7 million home in Arizona? Now, if that were my client, that would be my next professional collaboration in some way, right? Like, we can look at our clients as these relationships to learn from. Like Jeff had mentioned, sees that I get excited about having these appointments. It's not just another coffee. It's not just somebody that, can I buy you coffee? And I'm going to tell you my life story. It's how I can learn from these people, because as a real estate agent, we are the problem solvers for our clients constantly. And I think that's where the burnout can come, is we tend to put it on ourselves to be the smartest person in the room when we're serving our client. That's what our client expects of us, is to solve their problems. Now, if we can get into relationship and have these meetings and have these moments with other professionals where they feed into us so that we can flow that out to our clients and to other people that we want to be collaborating with. That's just like a beautiful thing where it just flows. It's like a fountain, it flows out, it goes in the pool and it sucks back up and comes back out again. I mean, that's how I envision these collaborative relationships.
Exactly. Every week when I go to the Pro Insight calls and Justin has a theme of the week, it always fills my cup. You think, I think I know what I'm doing right after this long in the business, but he always gives me something that gives me an edge. And I'm like, gosh, I haven't done that in a while. Or I need to get back to doing that. And it's fantastic. So to me, that's integral to my business, is being around people that think like me and being around people like you, Stephanie. I mean, just really knocking it out of the park. High producer, high-minded, good systems. We all need to learn from each other. And that's what I love about Pro Insight.
The thing that just came to mind, Stephanie, as you were discussing the power of your client network, right? Which, thank you, Jeff. That's super kind of you to say that. And it's an honor, like I said, to be around my superiors, hearing them teach each other, right, is how I see that. The thing that's really interesting is you think about like the real value of going to like an Ivy League school, which I never aspired to go there, but I've heard that the most valuable thing is the actual people that you meet, the network that you build while you're there. It's not the education, right? It's actually the people around you who are driven like you, they're focused like you, they're smart like you, right? And I think about what Stephanie just taught us is that every one of the most valuable thing about your client database isn't what they can do for you as far as commissions. It's the network that you're building of people who have succeeded in life and who have an intimate relationship with. You know where they live. You've been in their home. You've heard, right, their fears, their concerns, their dreams, their goals. Like, them at a very deep level. And the ability now to take that and turn it into at minimum knowledge, if not an asset that you can connect to somebody else for both of their sakes. Like, there's so much value in that when we step back and realize that all of us really own a data company, right? We don't see it that way, but we do. We have incredible data on people that we're able to then leverage to benefit their life as well as the lives of other people, which is super cool. I don't know if either of you have any additional thoughts on that, but it was really not hot for me. So thank you, Stephanie.
I think you're either a relational agent or you're a transactional agent.
Yeah.
Right. And I want to be able to handle a grandparent, a parent, a son or daughter, right? I want to handle multiple generations and know that, I'm going to take care of that family. Because as Stephanie said, we're problem solvers. We solve real estate problems. And so that's the kind of mentality I take into every appointment, is there's nobody better than me when it comes to solving problems. And because of my experience and track record and my grit, people like Stephanie and I, we get business, but I think it all leads with relationships.
Yeah. Are you guys okay? I've got another question that I want to ask both of you. Are you both okay for just a few more minutes? Okay. Both of you chose to move to a cloud-based brokerage, right? We're not here to necessarily promote that necessarily, but I do want to open people's eyes, right, to the fact that that you decided to make that move in part because you realized that there was some financial benefit to that, but I also believe it went back to this idea of professional collaboration, that no longer were there constraints maybe around a brick and mortar territory, right? But it was really opened up to like, the world is my potential place where I can step out and serve people. I'd love to have each of you talk about that, because I was at least, very involved with Stephanie's move and saw the why and the what, the good, bad, and the ugly of making that move. Jeff, I know you've been at that, in that position for a while. Is there something that people should look at when it comes to professional collaboration, right? That they should maybe step back and say, you know what, maybe it's worth consideration that there's higher and deeper collaboration in some of these new models.
Well, I could share a lot. I looked at this model for a while. There's a lot of reasons why in the e-cloud space, that's the real only sector that's grown over the last few years in real estate is the e-cloud real estate kind of companies. So, when you think about collaboration, pure collaboration, which is better when you're tied to a local franchise, when you're dealing with a few select people and they're doing most of the training, or if you're dealing with 90,000 agents, across the country and across the world where you have access to over 50 plus classes a week, which is better, right? So to me, there's so many reasons. The other reason is we share revenues. That's a one of a kind situation, and we're a highly profitable company. So when you look at revenue sharing versus profit sharing, there's a big difference there. And I know the economic models of every one of these companies out there, Justin. I've been doing this long enough to where I've done it literally a CMA on all companies, just like you do on houses. I understand the different models, the different value propositions, but to me, it came down to they share revenue. Who are the leaders, right? Are they in line with where the industry is going? Can I have equity? Yes. All of these things played into it, right? So I'm almost 55, right? So in 5 years, I'll be 60 years old. I want to have a great exit strategy, and there's no company in the world, in my humble opinion, that does it like EXP. So I could keep on going, but those are my main reasons.
I mean, we're going to promote a specific company, but you did anyway, and that's okay, Jeff. We love that about you, is that you're very outspoken about why you are where you're at, and I think it's awesome. So thank you for sharing, Stephanie. Tell me your thoughts. Obviously, you made that move. What additional opportunities were there for professional collaboration have you found?
Yeah, all the reasons that Jeff described, and for me, I have moved 4 times. This was my 4th move to a cloud-based brokerage. 2 of them were within the same company, but different location. But every time that I made a brokerage move, it's because I became, and I don't want to say the smartest person in the room, because I'm really not that smart. But I became the leader in that space. And then I wanted to get to a bigger room where there were other people that I could learn from. And then I wanted to get to a bigger room where there were other people that I could learn from. So every time I made the move, it was because of that collaboration. And so when I moved to a cloud-based brokerage, the room wasn't the walls. It wasn't the building. I'm able to get into the biggest rooms because I have access to the biggest players internationally, really, but within the country, I can look at someone, and when I'm saying I have a professional meeting with someone in the industry that's doing something more than me, I don't need to find that person in my local market. I can find that person within the cloud and reach out to them and get on Zoom. And technology has allowed us to essentially be in a room without walls, without borders.
Hey, could I piggyback off that one thing, Justin? My mistake when I went into the e-cloud brokerage space is I thought I couldn't build culture. And I've built companies on culture as the main foundation of everything. And what I found is, like, I may not see Stephanie in person that often, but when I see her, it's awesome, right? And I can't wait to see her in person. But I learned this way very well. And it also saves me a lot of time and money, to be quite honest, right? Instead of running around the old way of doing real estate, traveling around, and sucking in gas and paying out a lot of money and things like that. But my point being is you can create a lot of culture doing it this way. And then when you get together, it's even more special. And so I kind of doubted that when I came over here, and now I have no doubts, which I really like. I get to meet more people every day, and I get to learn from really high caliber people, which I never really did before.
More collaboration. I love it. Well, I'm so grateful for the two of you for being who you are, both successful business professionals at an extreme level, as well as significant human beings. Right, who care very deeply about their families, care very deeply about their faith, care very deeply about the people who they have stewardship and opportunities to serve. So I'm grateful for that. You're the exact people who we want to learn from and emulate and really shine a light on here at Think Bigger Real Estate Podcast. So my final question is this, Jeff. You're obviously a very big thinker, somebody who has done some incredible things in your career. What does Jeff Sutherlin do to continue to expand your possibilities, to continue to think bigger and bigger year after year? What does it look like for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's easy for me just to kind of be a recluse sometime and sit in my office and just grind it out every day. But I realize I have to go out and I have to meet big personalities. So I try to surround myself with really, really great people. And then I have a few people in my inner circle, to be quite honest with you, that challenge me, and I've given them permission to challenge me. And that's hard for a lot of people, right? Our ego stops us from doing that. There's all kinds of different reasons why we don't let people hold us accountable. So I've learned as I give more permission and trust people more with my life and ask for help more, which a lot of us struggle with that, asking for help. The more I ask for help, the better I become. So as I've gotten older, I've become more humble, and I've asked for more help from different people in different industries. And that's gotten me to think at a much higher level. And so to me, it comes back to collaboration, Justin, and just, identifying people that are very talented, and then having the courage to go up and say, I need some help. Could I pick your brain? Could I pick your brain on why you've been so successful? And then sit there with a notepad and take notes and listen, and then execute.
So few people in our world do that, have the humility to do that, have the discipline to do that. And it's a great tribute as to why you've had the success that you have. And Stephanie, you as well. And I know you have a similar practice of really learning from people, being open-minded, and really wanting to be in rooms, as you mentioned, that can teach you something. So grateful for you both, and for the example that you are to me. Privileged to have both of you members of Pro Insight, and really leading the charge by doing all the things that that we recommend at such a high level. So grateful for you both. And my final request of everybody listening here today are these 3 simple words, and they are: go think bigger. Jeff Sutherlin and Stephanie Peck, thank you so much, both of you, for helping us do that today. Before you go, we've got one more invitation for you. We all know that listening to a podcast is not enough to help you to become a big thinker and high achiever. We must take action. So the very first step, think about one lesson learned from this podcast that you'd like to apply, and send it to us in the form of a direct message.